A good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, the 15th of February, 2021. Trust everyone is waking up in good spirits. It's a bit overcast on the outside, but it is Monday. Brand new day, for fresh perspectives in everything good that you're going to get to, coming off all the love and the celebrations of yesterday. I guess everyone's feeling good, right? And ready to start today. I'm Brenda Batiste. I'm a moderator for the program, and we're here with our great talk panel of Senator Christopher Diali and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, wherever you are joining us and from whichever platform. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Brenda.
How are we this morning?
A little on the wet side, but that's fine.
A little on the wet side?
Yeah, you didn't want to get up to come to the most morning because the rain snuggled you in a little more, but that's good. And morning to the viewers, and welcome back after a week break.
Oh, yes, we took a rest for independence, right?
Good to be back. Yes. We're coming off the love weekend as well, for some of us.
Coming off the love weekend. Hello.
Good morning, viewers and listeners. I just noted that you referred to Chris as Chris and me as Mr. So you'll have to explain to the viewers why.
Did I say Senator Diali? I normally say Senator.
But I'm really happy for the weather this morning. The rains overnight this morning. It's beautiful. I mean, absolutely, the farmers would be happy. And as we talk about farmers, I want to make a quick pitch here. As usual, pretty City. I think it's really getting out of hand, and some people blame the present economic situation. There's no excuses. There's no reason.
Yeah.
I think that we need to look at it. The government, stakeholders need to look at this again. Maybe mandatory imprisonment. I don't know. We're looking for a strong deterrent here because it's really the net effect is that it is demotivating. Farmers. It's really very distressing. I've been getting a lot of feedback. Particularly,
I wish we could arrest the people who are buying the stuff.
Yeah, that's a big point here. The purchasers of the product. So for example, someone is buying it.
Yeah.
So I think that I heard the minister talk about it. In terms of revisiting it and looking at it. But I think this is urgent right now to take
the legislation we passed last year. How stringent was that, Senator Diali? Remember?
It's relatively. I think the issue with it is not so much the legislation; it's the operationalization of the legislation.
Well, that's with everything else.
We have always had complaints about the response time by the police, but it is a bigger issue and it's a deeper issue in the sense that people see it as no problem to steal and then sell. If you don't have people buying the stuff, you can't. Where's the sense of stealing? And so there's a two-prong approach, and I know we tried certifying farmers and all of that, and some of us who go to purchase goods, we don't ask for a way, You see people with stuff, and they don't have not a scrap of land, a square inch, but they still have stuff selling, So it's a holistic thing. It's not an easy thing to deal with, Byron. I mean, it's not just law alone.
Think guns would help?
I don't know.
I'm just asking. I don't know.
Farmers,
but a lot of farmers are asking for firearm license.
I think probably the first one of the first measures would be technology. Drones and CTVs and all of that on the farm. Imagine if you are an intruder and as you step on the plot, something goes off. Just things that would deter, and probably then, but we have to do something, or even the general, or even the farmers, the people most impacted by this, they have to be made to feel and made to see that we are doing something.
You see, the technology is a way to go, but then it's the investment in the technology and the maintenance of the technology.
How else will we fix this?
If you have a guy who put on a watermelon patch, the guy last year, I think was from St. Andrews area, and they just destroyed everything. It's just
that was painful. That was painful.
It's an attitude issue with our people as well that has to be fixed.
What is also current, of course, Brenda, we are now coming off independence. We didn't meet for the past 2 weeks, but I think I want to talk a little bit about the curfew, because I'm getting a lot of advice from young people who say, look, we don't need no curfew. We have zero infections. Open up, we want to get on with our lives. They have an important point, but the question is clearly, if we don't to zero, something's working. So the question, if it's working, you fix it. What do you do? You hold it. because as Chris, you were saying earlier off camera, that we are more or less in a bubble, because you look at Barbados, St. Vincent, you know, yes, we are zero, but what do we do at the zero? We relax now?
Well,
if you're a basketball team or a netball team, even a football team, and you're in the lead, what do you do? What do your coach tell you to do?
Yeah.
You hold, and you try to keep extending your lead.
Yeah.
So if we think of it as that, I'm no proponent of it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And it's for the good of the country, not for my good.
Yeah.
It's for the good of the country.
Yeah.
So if we're in that position, we hold. We
Well,
stay where we are until you know, things get better. Because you just look left, you look right, you look north, you look, it's right around us.
Let me throw in another aspect to it as well, Byron. We saw over the last week that our Prime Minister got vaccinated, and some of the ministers and frontline workers.
Right.
So if you throw the vaccination into the mix, the question becomes, do we still need the curfew if we're starting to vaccinate? And we got, what, 5,000 this week or last week?
Well, we got 1,000 on Wednesday, and then we
think
got 5,000 the next day. So we're now at
and
6, and we're expecting, I think, 40,000
right.
by
So
the end of this
if you
month.
throw that into the mix, the question really becomes, do we really need to have as we vaccinate
But that's
more and more
downstream.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah,
downstream.
but I mean, it depends on how fast the vaccination roll out. So that's one part of it. So I suspect the pressure to relieve the curfew and so on is going to mount with the vaccinations rolling out at a rate or at a particular pace.
But there's another side to that as well, because Grenada, I think I heard the Minister of Health saying that the target is for 60,000 people to get, inoculated.
Around 80%.
Right?
Yeah.
To get inoculated. And that would be 80% of the population for us. Then the question then becomes, remember, it's not mandatory, it's not legislated. I see people getting crazy about constitutionality, yada, yada, yada. It is not mandatory, it is not legislated to have your vaccine. It's a personal choice that you are making about this vaccine. It is advised, however. So if we get to that point, and then we have a whole set of people running around saying, well, me ain't doing that, me believing that, that ain't good, what that for? We can't lift the curfew. Where are we going?
Brenda, that's a big point in that, I mean, GBN is a random selection of persons just get a view on the streets, and the majority of that interview, I think 5 persons was interviewed, average 4 says, look, I'm not taking this. This is not good for me. This is no good. I'm poisoning myself. What kind of reason? What this tells me is that there's a need for information and education around
and
this.
Maybe that should have been the other side of that news story.
Yeah.
Because what we should be doing now, we all know how people feel, right?
Yeah.
So what we should be doing now, especially as a pillar in democracy, the fourth estate, is to inform and educate.
Yeah.
And to me, the views of the people on the street, yes, but follow that up with some discussion and education on the vaccine, how it works, where it was produced, what are the types of vaccines.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you have underlying conditions, if you don't, the demographic, the youth, the male, the female, that is the sort of discussion we need to have.
Yeah.
So obviously we can't leave that to media, and we cannot leave that to other people in the society who should be educating their base. So then the next thing I would recommend is for us to have some very serious public education by a serious public relations team. Barbados, they're so serious. They have called back their most prominent ambassador, Ambassador Liz Thompson, from the US to head up a PR team in their country, and they just hit the ground running on COVID, on vaccinations. Some of their best minds have been pulled together to do this. People that people accept willingly, easy to listen to, experts in the business, because another thing with our people is the politics, is everything,
I'm going in line. I'm standing in line for it. Very, very clear. I'm going in line for it. Overnight, standing up in line for it. So I agree with you, Brenda, that this is a part of the work that has. Chris, are you taking it?
Yes, I will, but I am like Brenda. I need to understand the different types of vaccines out there.
I'm ready.
And what is happening. This is a 2-shot vaccine. I am more inclined to take a 1-shot. And I think we need to explore,
There's only one shot at the moment,
No, there's a Cuban one, which is a 1-shot as well. The Russian one is a 1-shot.
The Sputnik one?
Yeah, the Sputnik. So there are a few, but I mean, we need to, in my view, examine all the alternatives that's there, and not only put everything on Pfizer and Moderna, even though WHO have authorized those, but I believe the Cuban one is something we really should look into.
Is it in production yet? The Cuban
The Cuban one is in major trials.
Yeah.
And I think from as a Caribbean nation and understanding the kind of prominence the medical sector in Cuba have with various things and accomplishments, I think it's something we should give serious thought to and exploration. I am one of those that want to see all. The question with these vaccines is the longitudinal studies that have not been done because of the speed of the rollout. And you hear the science and everybody thinks it's the greatest thing, but longitudinal studies after a while will give you a real understanding of how these things react to different things. So, and I think that is part of the risk and some of the hesitations that some people will have.
Yeah, well, those who are contemplative like you are, but remember, we have a whole set of people who have their premonitions about this. We have, communities like the Rastafarian and so who really don't, that's not their deal. There are some people for religious reasons. There are all sorts of reasons. And so based on all of that, and the skepticism and the cynicism and the conspiracy theories, those can only be addressed through education. I mean, you won't change everybody's minds, but I believe the more information people have, the more we do to show them. There are lots of studies now where, as most of them have been released on the market, where people are really giving the scientists, the science community, giving really high praise to AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca, of course, it was developed in the UK and made in India, and that's the one we got. And there's more to come. But I really believe that we need to go on a serious vaccination, public education exercise like yesterday, because, we can't just sit and say, well, if they want to take it as them and they're always criticizing, that's true too, but they need to be made aware. So there need to be some measure of responsibility and some sort of action on public education.
I want to switch the conversation a little, Byron, and hear your thoughts on, we have had quite a number of accidents over the Independence weekend. I think the police said was between 20 and 30 accidents over that weekend. And then we had another major one last night again. And the question becomes, what is happening? I mean, I don't know if the curfew and people trying to rush home to beat the 10 o'clock curfew is causing a lot of issues. I mean, I myself see some of the kind of reckless driving at times, and you have to ask yourself, what is going on here? And I mean, to have so many accidents over that weekend is alarming, and some of them could be fatal as well.
It's true. Well, first of all, we have to reflect on the exponential increase in vehicles into the island. I mean, compared to 2 years ago, 1 year ago, it's enormous. So that's one factor. You have more vehicles on the road, and this is a conversation I picked up from a young group of persons saying that contributing to it, as you say, is that persons are trying to get home in a shorter time. That's no excuse. That's unacceptable. I think, again, information,
10 o'clock is 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. So you have to plan. You can't. No, I'm not accepting.
But you see, you plan it, other people line in.
But you can't reach St. George's going to Grenville and you want to leave town quarter to 10 to make it home for 10 o'clock.
So it's something to look at. I mean, the police, I've heard the conversation, the amount of accidents. I mean, it's probably good for who? I don't know, mechanics, but it's not good for the country in terms of the repairs, the foreign exchange, and damage and loss of lives also, which is people suffer, people grieve as a result of this. So information, we do appeal to the young people in particular, because this is simply where the accidents are located. For due care and attention, I don't know. That's like the only thing. But I'm not putting the curfew there as part of the being responsible, Chris.
But Senator Diali, a lot of people are stating that. I mean, I have friends who are saying that. That 10 o'clock thing. Imagine they, I say to them, listen, it's 10 o'clock. Yeah. It's going to be 10 o'clock every day. Yeah. Like we know Christmas Day is 25th of December every year, right? So it's going to be 10 p.m. every day. But nah, Brenda, I don't understand.
But how
Friday alignment, why rushing?
How do you
so
justify
people
the 10
leave.
o'clock?
People would leave. Okay, so let's say they live at your address, going that way, east. They leave, and let's say they're at Esther's Bar.
Yeah.
They would leave Esther's Bar 9:30 or
Well,
quarter to 10, 5 to 10.
5 to 10.
Yes.
10
How
to
you
10.
expect to get to Fort Judy between 10:55 and 9:55 and 10 o'clock? Of course, you're speeding.
Yeah. So if the curfew is an issue, what must happen? What are the factors? What influence? What
the curfew is the curfew.
Yeah.
10 o'clock is 10 o'clock.
Has nothing to do with driving.
It's us.
Yeah.
It's if people feel they want to leave late
Because
and they figure they could get from Sotes to Tong or Tong to Sotes in 10 minutes and risk it all. But 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock.
Because if you bring the curfew to midnight, the same thing happens,
of
you know.
Things
the point.
So, the only anxiety is when the curfew was 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock was just too early.
Yeah.
I mean, even I got headaches coming to 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wasn't going anywhere. But at the time we needed it because of the situation we had with the cluster and so on and so forth. But I think the curfew for the while, it is 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, as you talk about that, I mean, the economy, and going back to the independence celebration, I mean, it was all virtual, but the Prime Minister said something about a social fund. That's what it's called?
Yeah.
Recommendation.
Yeah.
What's the details in that? You picked up that? I mean, this would be a fund that's managed by an independent social
we don't know.
Group of persons.
Prime Minister intends to present it to the social committee sometime soon. So, I mean, we don't know yet.
And the social committee idea will manage this.
Well, we don't know. I suppose when he presents his paper, we will understand how he's thinking.
In his independence address, that was the intentions he laid out. That it's going to be a social fund. The intention that it be managed by the social partners. Of course, we know the social partners is made up of many stakeholder groups and NGOs who really know where a lot of these people that need that kind of help. You know, and he said it would be for the most vulnerable among us. He also wanted it to be managed and implemented by them. Although he did not use the words, but I get the feeling that he's trying to create a situation where there's non-politicization of it, because we know how these things can get and how they can be received by our people. So if it is channeled and funneled and managed and implemented through another, I think it's a great idea. And I think the social partners, once they take their role seriously, and most of them do, should give him a listening ear. Of course, add their expertise to it as well, and come up with some form of best practice for how this would work. Because I mean, we can't sit here as Grenadians and human beings, first of all, and say, oh, we don't need this. We do. When we look around us, we do.
I mean, I sit on social partners, so I suspect when it comes, I will have more to say about it. It's left to be seen.
What comes forward.
I think, as Brenda said, it's an excellent idea from a standpoint of the need. But how it's going to be financed, how it's going to be managed, if it's through a board, through a trustee or something. There must be some
that's the kind of recommendations that needs to funnel from you guys
so when he presents, then we're going to understand a little more clearly what is the intent in terms of management and administration,
and then a rollout.
And so on, and then a rollout,
people understand.
And a lot of people will be concerned of the funding and how it's going to be funded and what is going to be happening at that level and so on. So we have something work in progress.
Well, the funds are coming from us, the working kind.
It's a voluntary.
It is voluntary, but the government will have to at least put in some sort of startup into it.
Social media comments are not happy about that as well. But let's wait and see. I mean, it don't make sense speculating. And
social media is not life.
So I know, just sharing the comments of the Grenadians, the few of us who work in still.
I know people figure they have to give more, and nobody ever likes to give more. But just on the premise of it, the fact that if you have, no matter what little you have, that you share. But I think everybody feels stretched at this time. But if you feel stretched and you're working, think about somebody who is this February saying, I have not worked for a year because my hotel was shut down and I need a hand up. And I think that's what it is. Sometimes we just react knee-jerk.
And that is very important. I mean, and we had to see about people in those areas. So I have no objection to it from that point of view.
So our conversation is a lot more about the economy this morning. We're going to be talking to one of our best minds here in Grenada about it. We take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Dreaming of taking a break and escaping to an idyllic, happy place? Well, finding it does not require you to go too far. You already live in paradise. All it takes is for you to go out and discover it. Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique are blessed with a wide variety of accommodation that satisfy any taste and budget. Find the one that suits you and your family and treat yourself while having peace of mind that your health and safety is a priority. Knowing that we have gorgeous waterfalls, stunning beaches, and flavorful cuisine, let's be tourists in our own islands and enjoy paradise at home.
Are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go. There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back to Perspectives. Of course, we are on air on MTV television and online on MTV's Facebook page, Partygrenada, TNR Communications, Mighty Live, Sister Isle Radio, Sister Isle's Facebook page, Sister Isle from Carriacou. Good morning to folks on Carriacou, and of course on our own Perspectives page. This morning, joining our expert talk panel, we welcome Mr. Michael B.M. Archibald, OBE. Michael Archibald is a retired banker who has given over 39 years to the banking industry, worked in regional and international banks. Now, during that period, he worked in all the usual departments as he worked his way up from a teller to the chief executive officer and worked in Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Guyana, and Canada with short stints in many other Caribbean islands, the USA and England. Along the way, he earned his MBA from Dalhousie University in Canada, a fellow of the Institute of Banks, FICB, with the Institute of Canadian Banks. He's a graduate of the Stonier Graduate School of Banking and then at Rutgers University in the USA. And he also earned a certificate in strategic thinking and strategic decision making from Michigan State University in the USA. Michael Archibald led a team that planned and started the National Commercial Bank of Grenada Limited, now Republic Bank, and led that bank to become the largest bank in Grenada. The positions held included branch manager of a branch of the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, General Manager of the National Commercial Bank of Grenada Limited, Managing Director of Republic Bank Grenada Limited, and Republic Bank Guyana Limited, a Regional Manager of Republic Bank Limited Trinidad, and Chief Operations Officer of Fast Cash Caribbean Limited. In his younger years, he played football and basketball for Grenada and made the national cricket team as a batsman. Mr. Archibald is a qualified director, is currently chairman of the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation and a member of the Grenada Legal Council. Over the years, he has served on many boards of directors, including as chairman of the Grenada Development Bank, the Caribbean Association of Indigenous Banks, the Market International Importing Board, the National Development Foundation of Grenada, the Eastern Caribbean Organization of Development Foundations, and the Grenada Amateur Basketball Association. As a director on the Grenada Nutmeg Board, the Grenada Cultural Foundation, the Grenada Carnival Committee, and as a trustee of the Caribbean Court of Justice Trust Fund, and as a host of the TV program Business Files. He now provides training and consultancy and workshop facilitation services as the principal of MBA Consultancy, Inc. Ladies and gentlemen, a most brilliant Grenadian, Mr. Michael B.M. Archibald, OBE. Good morning, Mr. Archibald.
Good morning, Brenda. And thank you for those words of introduction. Good morning to your panel, and good morning to your viewing public.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, Mr. Dialli was saying we took you out of retirement. I don't know how true that is.
Very correct. Very correct.
He's correct? Okay, okay. So, of course, our discussions this morning is going to focus, on the economy and all of that. So, Mr. Archibald, if Forbes magazine, let's say Forbes, The Investor, one of those sort of magazines, called you in February 2019 and said to you, just give us a brief synopsis of the Grenadian economy, and then they called you again in February 2021, what would you say to them?
Well, what I would say to them is that in 2021, is that we have just gone through an extremely difficult year caused by the virus, but very similar to what most other countries have gone through. And we have moved very dramatically from a situation in which the economy was growing quite steadily, albeit at a slightly declining rate, but growing very steadily over the last 6 years, now to a situation within 1 year where the economy has declined and been practically decimated. But that is similar to what has happened to almost every other country. I would also say to them, the question now is where we go from here. Where do we go from here? How do we get things back up and working? That would be my response.
So how do we get things back up and working? In a general sense, every area is adversely affected. And in terms of income and employment especially, that has been adversely affected. So if you were to give us some idea today as to some of the things that are really dire and any areas of light or anything that we can explore going forward, what would those be?
Let me make a general comment first. I think given where we are, we have to look at two things. One area, we have to restart the economy.
Right.
We have to do something or things that will kick things off. Then we have, secondly, we have to look at how we can sustain whatever we started off and sustain the rest of the economy. We can't just go into it just like that. First and foremost, you've got to start things going. Nothing is happening. Things are extremely bad. People are out of work. Almost everywhere you look, people are waiting on the government to do something. So you've got to find some way of restarting things. Once that has restarted, you then look at all these various sectors and say, how do we get to a situation of maintaining these sectors going forward? The government has suggested and that the restart, to kickstart things off, really rests to a large extent with construction. There are other areas, but with construction. There's been a lot of discussion about that, suggesting that the government is only thinking of construction. The way I view it is that the construction really is a kickoff, an ignition to start things going. And why construction is chosen is because it creates employment. It's an immediate source of employment. And if you can start employment going, and every project, whether it's a house, whether it's a drain, whether it's a hotel, all generates employment. That employment crosses various levels. The very low income, the guy who's just pushing the sand in a wheelbarrow, the carpenters, the trained masons, the trained electricians going up the line, the architects, etc. The employment therefore crosses all the various levels of society. And that's what makes it important. Secondly, once that money is in people's hands, they start spending. And that's where you get that kickstart and things going. Construction is called, the economist has a word that says it's a multiplier, a very serious multiplier impact on the economy. So, but that is the start. And there's where I agree with the government. The other part now, once we get that kickstart, how do we get all the various sectors going is a subject for all sorts of discussion. There's a continuing debate about which is more important, agriculture or tourism. I don't buy into that debate. They are very important, both of them. In fact, they can complement each other. And I don't see why we argue about which one is more important than the other. We cannot do without agriculture. Agriculture is an extremely important sector. But it must not be there at the cost of tourism, or tourism there at the cost of agriculture. And in fact, one of the things we seem to be missing is how tourism has impacted so positively on the agricultural sector.
Correct.
I speak to farmers all the time who are now in very dire straits because they cannot sell to the hotels. And the hotels are closed. So they balance off each other. To go back to part of your question, we have to look seriously starting off at agriculture. We talked about construction, and a lot of that is in the tourism area, and also in things like homes, etc. And the government-owned public sector program. The right term is the public sector investment program, where government is doing roads and so on. So those two things, both private sector and the government sector, you get that going. Tourism can restart very quickly as soon as transportation, travel is back up and going. Now, I don't know when that is going to be. I suspect it's going to be in this tourism season coming, which is November, December. So I suspect we'll be able to slowly build that one up. I have a real concern about agriculture, in that I still think the way we talk about agriculture, and I've been saying this for the last 10 years, and I still maintain it is important. We have to start with the way we view agriculture. We talk about agriculture only in terms of how much hard work it is, fellas walking around in dirty clothes with a cutlass in their hand, and that sort of thing. That does not encourage anybody to want to get into agriculture. If you look at the people who are in agriculture, they all tell their children not to go into agriculture. If you look at the schools, we don't talk or train or encourage anybody to go into agriculture. So we have to start first, in my view, upstairs here. How we look at and how we speak about agriculture before we can create the environment and encouragement for people to move into agriculture. And then we have to look at agriculture differently. We cannot look at, most of our farmers still, it is changing, but most of our farmers still operate exactly as their grandfather and grandfather operated. And we have to change that. It has to be far more modern. The Israelis have done it, and many other people have done it. So I don't have any magic solution, but we have to start upstairs here. Then we have to start approaching agriculture in a completely different way. I was speaking to a guy just before the pandemic. He said, Archie, come, let me show you something. And he had a pickup, a brand new pickup. He was about 35 years old, he's a farmer. He said, look in the back. When I lifted up the tarpaulin, the vegetables and stuff that were in the back there was just simply unbelievable. I said, what's happening? How you doing? He said, you have 5 acres. He was going to the hotels. He said, I think it was Spice Island. He drove in Spice Island, they buy the whole back of the stuff. He said he's built a house, his children are in secondary school, one of them going to university. And I'm looking at this guy, he got 5 acres, and he's in agriculture. And we say agriculture is not profitable. It is not profitable because of the way we do it, right? And I said to him, when people like you must go on the air and talk, he said, me, I don't want nobody to know.
Yeah, we like that.
The point I'm making, if we can make the changes, and I said I don't have the magic formula, agriculture can become what it really supposed to be. Particularly when we start to think about feeding ourselves, food security, feeding the tourism sector. One last comment with regard to the economy. I think we really need to look at new sectors. This whole matter of the blue economy, I mean, it's all sorts of fancy words, but it's really what you can do with the ocean.
Right.
And what comes out of the ocean. Right now, to a large extent, what do? The fella's still going out in a little pirogue or the tuna fishing. Full stop. That's what we do. There's a lot more there. So we have to find a way of focusing on it. I think we have to involve people like St. George's University, because they have a department, I think, that is a marine biology or whatever department, and the University of the West Indies. The University of the West Indies will be charged with finding ways for the Caribbean to make better use of the ocean in which it sits, rather than producing a whole lot of doctors and lawyers, etc. I have nothing against doctors and lawyers.
And there's more ocean than people.
There's more ocean than people. But we have to talk about how do we get our economy going? How do our people lift their standard of living? And you have a university which is highly regarded, full of good people. I just think their focus needs to change a little to how do we get our people higher standard of living, rather than doctors and lawyers and so on. So I know my doctor and lawyer friends are gonna get at me for this.
No, they're all right, man. They don't want the market to be oversaturated. So they're happy that you're shifting. Senator Daly?
Yeah. Well, I think Michael has it right in the sense that the issue of construction is short term. Probably they will argue, the economists will argue about sustainability of it based on the projects that because they have a lifespan. So, but it is always touted as the sector that you use to kickstart and to help with the unemployment situation. All countries over the world coming out of the pandemic has been doing that. They've been targeting a lot of their funds through the public sector investment program by government and trying to stimulate various other aspects. The only area I would disagree with Pointy on is the issue of tourism. I think tourism is going to take a lot longer to come back than this tourism season coming up this year. And there's 2 aspects. There's a cruise and a stayover. I don't think cruise is going to come back by 2021. I think cruise is 2022, 2023. And stayover tourism is going to be highly dependent, as you say, on the borders being opened up and airlines being traveling. And we're going to see, I believe, the airlines are going to insist that you have to show your vaccination card before the board. And a lot of that is going to be dependent on how nations do that. Now, when you look at what is happening now with vaccinations and poorer countries in Central and Southern America and Africa continent and to some degree Asia, you wonder how we're going to get people to move and the confidence to move. And then whether or not airlines are going to still be around to fly. Which ones are going to be there, because a lot of them are seeing severe problems. So I think the tourism, yes, it can come back quickly, but it's going to be a challenging comeback, and it's going to be slower than normal. And that will have the impact on agriculture, as he said. But I think the only thing I didn't hear him mention is education services, which is such a big thing of our economy, SGU being a particular participant in that area. And if we could get SGU to come back quicker than we would want them to, and the understanding is by August, September into January of 2022, we should see a significant more students coming back. That helps significantly the economy because, again, purchasing power of the students coming back. You have the rental aspect of whether it's housing or whether it's vehicle, whether it's motorbikes, whatever. The students bring in a huge demand for services and products. So that can help significantly, even with the farming community as well. So it is something that we have to work on. Look at the areas that we could touch on the economy that could quickly bring things back outside of the tourism sector per se, and it's not that you're choosing one over the other, is which ones could react quicker in a pandemic situation and safely enough so that we could get the economy to roll back. And let me tell you, Brenda, I think the unemployment situation in the country is serious. And part of that, and Pointy spoke about new sectors. The one I want to talk about is renewable energy. And I think there is a lot of potential. The government have to maximize that in a sense that we could show people that there's opportunities and jobs in that area. Some may have to retrain, but that's an area we could look at. I mean, just over the weekend, we were talking about public transport, Pointy, and the fact that public transport is totally controlled by private enterprise in Grenada. And one of the guys that we were chatting about said, listen, why can't the government consider bringing in 30 electric buses and have that as public transport, start with students and getting students to work. And in the night when nobody wants to travel, the private buses, or after 10 in the night into the morning, public transport takes over and try to stimulate the economy and stimulate action, because there are people that need to get to work.
Just to interject a bit, but you see where you're dropping it again, and as Mr. Archibald was saying, we just keep looking to the government. But how about them incentivize a group of individuals? Let's say people like Cosmo and so, who no longer have tourists.
No, because you have to distinguish between private and public.
Right,
and the public, what you could do in the public transport, you can't insist on the private
but then
side. I think we go through
okay, so all right, logically yes, but reality in terms of how we operate. If the government were to bring in buses, what would be the cry on the street?
Agreed, and that's
what would be the cry on the street?
It has to be a blended situation, because right now private buses do not normally operate after certain hours in the night and on Sundays. But we have people that need to get to work and need to get things done. That's I'm throwing it over there because I know it's a conversation that, and I know the busmen.
It has to happen.
I know the busmen will push back, and rightfully so. But there are areas where they are not dealing and not servicing, and you need to get at. And I know my good friend Senator Humphrey had articulated this a few years ago. Start with the school children and getting them to move, and then take it in a blended kind of way. The word blended now is a big thing for us. I mean. So, and last thing on point is, chat, the blue economy, I fully support that, but it's not just fishing. There is a part with CMOS and that industry and farming.
Aquaponics.
And the whole side of that blue economy that we don't seem to, yes, there are a lot more people in Grenada getting involved in CMOS farming as an industry, and that particular thing, CMOS, has so much health benefits now. It's becoming so widely accepted regionally and internationally. I think there are so much avenues there that we need to, and we have an expert farmer here, so I will leave that to him. I ain't going on the agriculture side
at all.
but
we just want Mr. Archibald to comment a bit on some of the things that Senator Daly has highlighted, i.e. the education services. And I think when you raised the blue economy, it was more. That's right. Because the sea is so vast.
When I talked about the blue economy, I was not limiting it to fishing. I was saying what we do now is just fishing. Yeah. But there's so much more, and I think we need to find a way to explore that. And whether government has to give some incentives or whatever it is, we need to explore that a lot more. The comment about the educational service is very, very realistic. In fact, I'm involved in it in the sense that I have one or two apartments. And I have no tenants for the last year. So I feel it, and I know exactly the impact that Senator Daly is speaking about. And we need to see how we can encourage the university back, whatever needs to be done as quickly as possible. Because the spin-offs from that university is incalculable. We now say it's 20 or 22% of the GDP, but that is huge. But what you need to think about when you look at it is all the spin-offs that create that 22%. Yeah. All the very little things, from rentals, from more use of water, more use of electricity, more use of taxis, the supermarkets, so you name it right across. So that is critical. In fact, I would wish the government will explore a second university so that you're not entirely reliant on one university. And some islands have 2 and 3.
Yeah.
SU is one of the best in the Caribbean by all studies. And we should be very proud
Well, in the
of that.
world, I was reading the other day that, I forget the name of the university in the US, that outside of that university, St. George's University had the most doctors in hospitals across the United States. That is how huge the impact is.
Well, what I knew was before they were not very highly regarded when they just started. No, they look for them.
40 years later.
Yeah.
So that is extremely important. I like the idea of looking at the transportation sector. I haven't thought about it, frankly.
Do you think it's an issue of national security as well?
The transport.
Transport.
It is.
But more and more, as your economy diversifies, you have more people working at night. Not just the hotel people.
True.
They are the main ones, but you have more people. So you need some sort of transportation system that takes that into consideration. And there's going to be a battle with the private sector, private bus owners. But you have to start that conversation. And I think it can be solved here, but I think starting with the schools is a good place to start. And since the government talks so much about non-fossil fuel, what's the word?
Renewables.
Start with the electric vehicles. In fact, going forward, every vehicle the government purchases should look at purchasing.
They should set the tone. Yeah.
Because
they've signed on to.
Of my friend.
No, not only that, because they've signed on to so many of the climate agreements. I mean, to get funding and all of that. And if we're going to be, St. George's is going to be one of the green cities of the Caribbean. So all these things have to support each other.
I know Pointy would know this. PTS, we know of PTS. When it existed, and MTS. And I mean, the issue have always been in these, why they failed is because there was abuse of the system, obviously, by the politicians and the maintenance aspect. Electric vehicles don't have that level of maintenance and so on. But the abuse thing, we could deal with that, obviously. The Prime Minister, whoever is going to be at the time, will deal with it. But we must look at it also, as you say, national security. The footprint, the carbon footprint will be less. We could be used as an example in the region as to how, as a matter of fact, Barbados took the decision that they are going to phase out all their diesel public transport to electric. And if they could do it, why can't we? So it's something that needs consideration from that point of view and see how it works. And I mean,
just a comment on the public transport thing. I remember having my first introduction to public transport during the revolution when I had a call from Vernon Court saying, Byron, we have 11, 13 coasters coming and I want you to be the chairman. This was the first public transportation system in Grenada. So it's interesting, but the important point, the importance of public transportation when it's properly organized, we reduce the demand for private vehicles. And Grenada is reaching its It's reached it. Yeah. So a properly organized public transport system, even improving on what we have now, will make a difference, particularly on Sundays and after hours. That being said, I just want to comment on a few points you made, and I think they're very important in terms of the relationship between the agricultural sector and tourism sector. Clearly, as you pointed out, farmers are suffering now as with the absence of the SGU students and the tourism sector in general. So that's a fact, and clearly they're integrated. But one of the issues the sector faces, Pointy, is that of financing. And as a banker, I'd like your comment here in that young people in particular, or just farmers in general, have difficulties accessing financing from the financial institutions. In fact, I've talked about this before. I know the last numbers I've seen in terms of all the on-lending to the various sectors, agriculture is on the 2%, Wow. This is extremely low. What is the reason for that? I mean, some of the, why do we have it? Is this because of the unreliability in terms of payment? But what, from a banking point of view, what has happened? Why is this so?
You have to go back. It's all centers around risk. Agriculture is still perceived, not just by bankers, but by everyone, as risky.
And it is.
But I don't know that it's more risky or significantly more risky than some others, right? That's just aside. But it's perceived as risky. So if I'm lending money and I perceive that a sector is risky, I'm going to be extremely careful. I'm going back to the way we look at agriculture, the way we think about agriculture, right? And secondly, if you look at the bank's books And I think part of that is the way we approach and structure the loans. I don't think has been the best. We need to improve the way the loans to the agricultural sector are structured. Long ago, you would see a loan. The guy is a nutmeg farmer. His real money comes in at the end of the year from the bonus. But a loan will be structured. He will say to you, he can pay you every month.
Yeah.
Because he wants the loan.
Yeah.
You should know that he might not be able to pay every month. He might only be able to pay at the end of the year. But the commercial banks of long ago insisted on monthly payments. So you set the loan up immediately to fail. And that was a problem long ago. Now it's changing, it's getting better. But I'm saying the risk, the way it is perceived, and secondly, the loan structuring, and thirdly, you have to admit when the average farmer comes in to talk to you, he can't really tell you what he wants, unfortunately.
That is so correct.
Unfortunately, tell you he wanted money, and he know what he wants to do with it, but he has a difficulty in explaining that. And sitting across the desk is some young man or young lady in a tie, etc., etc. Doesn't know what he's talking about. So you have that. Now, several of those things are changing.
Yeah.
But you still have the history of that still built into the systems that has to be changed.
And just a comment here again too on the fisheries sector, that recognizing that there's things happening in fisheries. I want to say that first of all, the value of fish in terms of export is now more than nutmeg, so it's certainly growing. That's to give you an idea. But also Grenada is now looking at exporting loin fish. In other words, which is the high end to a lot of restaurants. I know in Grand Mall there's some preparation. I think there's some preparation taking place in Dwarf also to export loin fish. So that sector, and we see more trawlers coming into the system now. So that's a good thing, and definitely, as you say, the blue economy, fishing generally. But we, in terms of the training and other development, I think that as an important sector, we need, I think, to hear more about it and more in the planning. I think that is certainly going to be important. But one of the other areas affecting agriculture also is that of the Asian farmer. The average age is now, 55? So how do you attract younger persons, starting from the 4-H movement in schools, models, demonstrating that this is not just dirty, and it's business, to introduce the more business approach to the sector, showing its profitability, and it's clear,
Byron, just to jump on that one, I'll come back to the fishing thing, because the other part of fishing I want to talk about is value add. I think over the years, all we've been doing is constructing fish markets to sell fish and so on, but we never think about fish processing. I think it's time we move to that end. But that aside, I have a young son that is very interested in agriculture. What got him there? Why is he so interested in agriculture? He's not looking at agriculture only from the point of view of the aspect of farming, but when he thinking farming, he thinking hydroponics.
Right.
He's not thinking about cutlass and fork and water boots and so on. He thinking hydroponics. So these young people are not looking at the traditional way of farming. So I say that to say that to attract young people is two things. He's seeing the potential as a business, the potential to be making money. And don't forget, agriculture is one of the few sectors in Grenada that have all the exemptions in terms of taxes and so on.
It's true.
So it is an area you could get a vehicle at 50% concession. You don't have to pay taxes on corporation tax. So they have...
On your produce, that's exactly.
Right. So there's a lot of added incentive. So the pitch to the young person is, you don't have to go in the land with all of this backbreaking work and, as Pointy says, change the concept up here and show them that it's a business approach. So they are going to change, I think, if we encourage it in that way, to get them involved. So I'm not worried about the age. I think the age will come up in terms of, or drop.
Once the young persons come in.
Right, and if we structure it differently for them and show them how it can be made. And similarly, the fishing thing is, as I said just recently, could you imagine putting a fish processing plant in Victoria? Right? Victoria has one of the big fishing things there already, from the jetty to the fish house and so on. But attach a processing plant to that, so that all the fish that we can't export, we could can. We have flake tuna, we have tuna in oil, tuna in water. There's a lot of tuna that don't go. Why can't we do it for ourselves? and create employment in a so-called area of the country where the poverty rates are pretty high, immediately you get value added, and that value added will be constant in that the sense that the fishermen fish that they can't normally do things with will be processed. And I really think we need to transition the thinking there.
Yeah.
You know, and now is the time. Now is the time to take it there, because the pandemic is certainly, if not nothing else, revealing the areas of our society that are weak and needs to be addressed, whether it's from a human resource point of view or from an industrial point of view. And these are some of the things I think we can really target.
The question always comes down to how, you know. I think by and large we know what to do. We might disagree on, you know, various aspects, but if you look at the way Grenadians speak, Grenadians overseas, Grenadians here, we pretty much know what needs to be done in a general sense.
That's true.
Where we run into the difficulties, how do we do those things? How we do the things you just been talking about?
Operationalize it.
That's right. That's where we tend to run into difficulty. And there are two big issues. One, as a people, I think we are far too reliant on government. We wait for government to do every single thing. And a friend of mine from overseas is saying, what are you all waiting on government for? And I couldn't answer. Everybody, well, government to do this, and government to do that, and government to do the other. And secondly, we have not over the years looked at the generational transfer of wealth.
Absolutely.
Our people, the way we operated over the years, I own some money, that's mine. Ms. Children had to see about herself. And people are going to get angry with me for that. Look at some of the other cultures, the Asian cultures, the Indian Asian cultures, the Syrian cultures. A lot of what they do is to make sure they pass on wealth to their children. We educate our children. We don't pass on any wealth. We educate. And we have to start thinking of passing on, of how we transfer wealth so that the next generation is better off than us. That I know it's a subject for debate, it's a subject that raises a lot of error, but I do not think we do it to the extent that we should be doing when we look at the other cultures. There was an article written by a university. They had interviewed a Chinaman in Brooklyn or someplace like that, and he was very wealthy in Brooklyn. And where he became wealthy he has all these little shops. And they asked him, why is it that the Chinese people and the Indian people, etc., seem to be so successful with all these little entrepreneurial activities, and the black people do well in education? You know, we go to become doctors, become lawyers, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And he said, when a black man set up a shop in a black neighborhood, he gets no support. I could come as a Chinese man and set up the shop in the black neighborhood, and all the black people come to me. Think of what he said. This is an old Chinaman, and then go to secondary school, then go to university, and he's well off. He said the Chinese people support each other. The Indian people support each other. And I'm talking about Indians from India. He said, you black people do not support each other.
You see, that's it. We have to want to see each other do well.
In fact, we behave like crabs in a barrel. As soon as we see one of ours claiming, we want to pull him back down. We do not support each other.
Right, you're going to run into plenty of trouble for those
I know I'm running into trouble.
We're running out of time, Mr. Archibald. But in terms of the future activities that are going to impact the economy, we see what's happening with the 4% that the public servants are asking for. How do you think that is going to impact? One way or the other?
I think the most unfortunate thing to have a confrontation like that at this time in the country, when we are facing such a serious economic problem. The country the economy has been decimated. And I think it's most unfortunate that at this time you have a confrontation like we're looking at. The teachers and the civil servants are saying that they have a signed document which says that they must get paid their 4%. Okay. The government, on the other hand, is facing a situation where government revenues has been cut in half. And that is easy to see. You can check it and see it. It seems to me a most unfortunate time if the government's revenues are cut in half and the government expenses are going up as they seek to deal with the spending. Forget who the government is. We like to personalize everything in this country, and it's Keith Mitchell this, Keith Mitchell that. Forget that. You have a situation where government income, their revenues have been cut in half. At the same time, government expenses have gone up as they try to help the areas thing. And at that same time, to be making noise for a 4% increase seems to me most unfortunate. That's my first comment. The second comment, and this is where I think the teachers did something I think was most unfortunate. Everybody has a right to protest and demonstrate. No issue, no quarrel with that. But to make a decision to go into the classrooms and not speak to the students, I could never support that. The students didn't do you anything. Your problem is not with the students. Your problem is with the government. Deal with the government. Argue with the government. But why are you taking this out on the students? Because the students are going to suffer. They got students who look at teacher, miss, and you're not speaking to them. That could have an impact on those children. I think that's the most unfortunate move, and not what I would have expected from the teachers. And this does not take away, and I know how I'm going to be misinterpreted, this does not take away from their right to protest or their right to march or wear your placard. So 2 points. One, I think is the most unfortunate time, and not the time to be putting that kind of pressure on government finances.
They make the point that the government is struggling with the monies to pay them, but they are matching that against the ability the government found this money to repurchase the shares in Grenlec. Oh, the rationale. How do you assess that?
I asked an accountant, a public accountant, to answer that for me. And he helped me to understand that situation. I'm not in a position to explain it because I'm not an accountant. But let me say two things. There's a difference between your capital budget and your capital spending, your source, where the money comes from and what you can do with it, and your recurrent budget. Your recurrent budget is where you meet your current expenses, right? And that is when we say that government's revenue has been reduced by 50%. And that is where that is. And I think I'm not the best person to explain it.
I want to give you a simple explanation on that. Recurrent, when you put a 4% on recurrent, you have to get whatever million, let's say it's 10 million every month to pay.
Right. It's
you
not
need
a one-off.
to find revenue, first of all, to match that additional expense every month. The capital spend is a one-off.
A one-off, right.
Right? You find money for a one-off and it's spent and it's done. But when you add on the 4%, you have to find every month from January, when that became effective. Every more. And you need to make sure the revenues are there. I think this is what government is saying. Government is saying to the public servants, we don't have the revenue capacity yet to pay the 4%. We are going to pay it. We are legally bound to pay it. But give us a chance to bring the economy back up to a level where we can get a surety that when I add on that 4% to you, I have the monies to pay you every month going forward. And that is the difference that I think when they use a Grenlec issue, that we need to be clear about. And just like Michael, I think it's unfortunate. I don't want to get passionate about the thing about going in the class and not speaking to students. I mean, that is just so not teacher-like. I want to say
that is one thing I'm passionate about. We should not do that to the students.
The other thing I would just add to this, and I've said this before, I think the public servants in Grenada generally is one of the employee groups that have not had to take any sort of major impact of the pandemic. All of them continue to be employed. All of them will continue to be at full pay. None of them got cut in pay, and no loss of anything. But whereas the rest of the private sector and the rest of the Grenadian economy suffered significantly. There are people in the hotel sector that you said coming up in March, 1 year without a job.
This month, February.
1 year. And what do you say to those people? And these are a lot of single mothers with children,
single fathers
and single fathers, and you know, it's just as though they have no consideration for that group of people. There are people in the supermarket industry have serious cut in pay, some 20, some 50%. All the small industries.
They might tell you that's not their role. Their role, the thing is, it's their 4% and they need it.
Who keeps them and
It's
their
those
money's
same
paid.
people that
It's those
keep them
same
paid.
people that paying taxes.
Well, you see,
You
that's
know?
sometimes we don't see that far down the.
And that is
Far
that is
down
that
the,
is my
the
only thing
ladder.
about it. I'm not saying that the teachers and the publishers shouldn't get their 4%. They're contractually due to their 4%. But my goodness, what is wrong in saying be a little patient? And
Mr.
Is there a
Diari,
timeline
I don't
for this
think-
deferral,
I don't
though?
think.
no,
Hold on.
it's
I don't think
legally
I've
true.
heard. I don't think I've heard anybody outside or within the government or among our general discussion say they shouldn't get it.
No.
That's not an issue.
That's
They
not
should
an
get it. The issue to me is when.
Yeah.
What is so wrong by the government asking for a delay of a few hours? What I think the government needs to look at is when. They cannot simply say
That's a
defer and you can't say when.
timeline for
and-
deferral.
They have to be a little more definite.
And the thing with the well, my friend, as I said earlier, the only thing certain about 2021 is uncertainty. Government cannot say a when unless they understand how the economy is coming back through construction, through
Maybe they should.
SGU,
Maybe they could.
you know?
Maybe they could sit down and come up with a proposed
Yes,
time.
I think simply
nothing
saying,
wrong with
Maybe,
that.
simply
maybe
saying-
let's say they put out 2 or 3 dates and they talk about
Yeah,
it.
right.
So it's starting to look as
Yeah.
if by this time,
Brenda, I agree
all
with you.
things
Simply saying
considered,
that you can't
yeah,
say
yeah.
is not good enough.
Yeah.
You have to do
Yeah.
better than
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I agree with this, and I think, Chris, I want to join with you in that. Very unfortunate the tactics, the techniques used in terms of to. But what has resulted here is that I think that initially I saw a lot of public support for the teachers coming out. Look, you know, give them their money. You know, but since the action last week with the not communicating to the children in the classroom, they've lost, the teachers I think have lost a lot of the public support for their cause, if you could call it that. But I think going forward that there must be some level of arbitration, the labor commissioner, you know, how they deal with that, and clearly putting some kind of time frame, as you point out, to a settlement of it. But clearly, when you look at the economy, it's in a strait. And Pondy, I don't think the cut in government revenue is as much as 50%, but it's significant, you know.
Actually, I think
not
it's
as
more.
much as 50%.
I think it's more.
Not get the
All you
numbers.
have to do is look around.
But it's in terms of the recurrent revenue, both, and you're thinking primarily in terms of inland revenue and port revenue, you know. But it's down, and it's down significantly, and therefore government ability to meet new expenditure, which are commitments. You know.
Remember, you know,
Somebody's just sent
there's no profits in 2020.
Yeah.
And you know, corporation tax is
Yeah,
paid.
listen to me.
Exactly. So it's significant.
So, you know,
So-
for this March coming in.
Listen to me. It's trouble.
Yes.
Someone have a recommendation. Someone
Yeah.
on social media
Yeah.
is saying pay them 1% every 3 months.
But
Yeah,
still
All
it
those
becomes
things need to be
recurrent.
explored, but they still go back
Every month.
to his point.
Yeah.
The problem with the recurrent expenditure for the teachers or civil servants is you have to find it every month going
Every
forward.
because it keeps
Yeah. Whereas from the capital side,
it's a one-off.
one-off expense.
Okay. Mr. Archibald, before we let you go, just any bright spots you're seeing, you're hearing, I know you're uniquely positioned to know how we're doing economically, Grenada as a country, and just, you know, just your general summation of what you see happening in 2021.
I'm a little more optimistic than my friend, the senator, with regard to the coming back of the tourism sector.
Me too.
And
Me too.
And the education sector, mainly being the school. I'm getting a sense that the students are trickling in.
Yeah.
Yeah, my neighbors have returned.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
they're trickling
Yes.
in. So I'm a little
And they
bit
are
more
students.
optimistic. I still think it's the August season. The
Right,
August
they say they're going to come
term.
back by August.
Yeah,
September.
but and secondly, why I'm a bit more optimistic about the tourism sector, it wouldn't be back to where it was, and I hope I didn't convey that.
Yeah.
But I think it will start coming back
moving.
up in September, November. The governments of the world are not going to let the airlines fail.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think they are. Right now, they're supporting American Airlines. No more of them American Airlines getting support from
Yeah.
the government.
Yeah.
So
Because
we
if
won't
that-
talk about Riyadh.
Now I don't know.
Why not?
That's another
That's a
topic.
crime.
And so,
Yeah.
because that
right.
will have such an if the airlines, not one airline, but if several of them fail, the impact on the American economy or the economy of the developed world will be such that they can't let it happen.
Yeah.
And once the airlines are flying, the tourists are going to start coming.
Yeah.
Liat is another story for a different discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit more optimistic on those two areas.
And Grenada in general, and how?
No, well, I said the Grenada economy and those two
good.
areas.
Yeah. All right, good.
Well, I would only add to that one thing that I think is very positive for our country is how we have managed COVID.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of zeros, and I think that will bode well for tourism coming back. And I hear Michael saying he thinks it could come back sooner. I'm happy if it comes back sooner. But I think we have done an excellent job. Not just government, or people in general have done. Yes, we had like breaches here and people getting the cabin fever and so on.
Spicy, we nervous.
Yeah, but I think we have done. I mean, and all that is going around in the country. Trinidad is heading in the right direction. So we hope we could see some release and opening up with Trinidad, so we can get things to function better there. So it has been a good thing, and with the vaccines coming and people getting, and if the PR program, I think that's positive.
It's not even PR, because PR people, we could tend to get very colorful and crafty with PR. We need public education.
Yes.
We can't move around. It is what it is. What it is.
I am very upbeat, and I think things are going to come back in 2021 to a place where we could start seeing some normalization, and I'm happy that and all of us, I think, is contributing to it, and that is a good thing.
Brenda, I just want to emphasize the vaccine. You know, it's here.
You're first in line.
No, I'm standing in line, not first in line.
The Prime Minister is first in line.
I'm excited about it because the vaccine is is a clear relationship between the economy getting back to some normalcy and the vaccine, clearly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to that, and I'm anxious to see it roll out in a big way here.
Yeah, the vaccination, for all the anxieties we feel about it, I really think it is the only light that we've seen in terms of how we move back to who we were, or the new normal, outside of, because it's the only thing that really could combat COVID. Yeah. So now that we have it, that is useful. The change of presidents in the United States is also going to be a big impact on the world going forward. Only Saturday, President Biden say that Americans by July, that'll be it. They'll open up and free flowing, because enough of their citizens will be vaccinated by then. We were saying, remember we had the first conversation about vaccinations, we said we wouldn't see it till the end of 2021. Here we are in February, receiving our first set, and then seeing our officials, our Prime Minister, the President of the Senate, the Minister of Health, to see these people vaccinated. It just brings some sort of, uplift, if you will, as to how we look into the future. But everything is hinged on that. If we are getting back to where we were, and if we want to be released and have fetes and have carnival, it's Carnival Monday and Tuesday today. It's Carnival Monday today.
Is it?
Trinidad and Carriacou, I feel your pain. Dominica, you too. But so if we have any semblance of getting back to any place, it's vaccinations.
Vaccination, absolutely,
Good.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mr. Archibald. It was great seeing you.
Don't mention it. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, so you invite him again.
Yeah.
Although Mr. Diali says I'm going to get in trouble for my comments.
No, you know what it is? He won't company. They're writing a calypso about him, Yes,
I am getting up already. Mikey can take some from here.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. And of course, brilliant nuggets you left with us here this morning. That's our program. Thank you so very much, gentlemen. Have a great week. Have a great Monday. And for all of us here at Perspectives, I'd like to say a hearty thank you to our technical team, the folks who get us up every morning so you can join us. We must say thank you to Nazim Benjamin for streaming, Blondell George was a master at all the technical things, Cullen Dragon, our cameraman, doing all the dicey work there. I see you, Cullen. Our executive producer, Mr. Richie Oliver, and Kishon Thomas, our producer. I'm Brenda Batiste. Until next Monday, when we have some more perspectives. Bye-bye.
Dreaming of